Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our first Lunch and Learn of the semester. We're going to get started here in about a minute. We just wanted to welcome everyone and let a few more people arrive, so we'll be starting in about a minute or two. Okay, everybody, welcome to today's Leadership in Action Lunch and Learn webinar. Today we are teaming up with our National Philanthropy Partners HOBY to discuss becoming a motivating leader and involved in service. My name is Casey Hicks, and I am the Programming Coordinator for Phi Sigma Pi, and I will be your moderator today. We appreciate you attending this webinar as both HOBY and Phi Sigma Pi continue to support our shared mission in honor of Hugh's legacy. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can ask them in the GoToWebinar box on your screen. There will also be a few poll questions during this webinar, and during that time you can pick some answers, and they will be doing that by clicking on your screen. And we have two panelists joining us today. It is my pleasure to introduce Sandrea L. Shields as the Director of National Programs for Region H. A native to Dallas, Texas, Sandrea is no stranger to the HOBY mission, having served as a seminar senior facilitator and speaker for HOBY Texas North, and a partnership contact at the state level. With over a decade of nonprofit management experience, Sandrea is excited to merge her experience, passion, and talents for the benefit of the youth, volunteers, and communities HOBY impacts. Relationship management, program development, and volunteer recruitment are a few of the skill sets Sandrea brings to our team. Prior to joining HOBY team, Sandrea worked at Texas Big Brothers Big Sisters for 10 years. She attained her Bachelor of Arts in Journalism with a concentration in Public Relations from the University of North Texas. She lives in Dallas, Texas, and has one son, William Charles, age 5. Next, we have our Director of Alumni Relations and Programming for Phi Sigma Pi, Sarah Smith. Sarah is an alumna of the Epsilon Alpha chapter at Kutztown University. She manages the fraternity's alumni engagement, including the National Alumni Association and alumni chapters. She also assists with national event programming and serves as the HOBY partner lead for Phi Sigma Pi. Sarah is a HOBY alum, and 2017 marks her 10th year as a HOBY volunteer. Currently, Sarah serves on the Board of Trustees as a CLUE Director for Central Pennsylvania HOBY. Thank you to Sandrea and Sarah for joining us today.
Thank you guys for having me. Hello, everyone. Okay, so we are going to jump right in. I guess I should say good afternoon in some parts of the world. I'm excited to spend the next 4 hours. No, I'm kidding. The next hour with you talking about today's topic, how to be a motivating leader and getting your chapter more involved in service. So let's see, leading a team, a group, a chapter, especially if it's new, it comes with its natural challenges, as we all may know as leaders. You may have a group of people who have grown accustomed to doing things a certain way, or a team that may or may not have liked their previous leadership, or a chapter that just needs to be rejuvenated or motivated, and the scenarios are endless, right? So regardless of the situation, each of you have a great opportunity in front of you. Let's just jump right in. I love quotes, and I've chosen a quote that I feel is so befitting for today's training by John Quincy Adams, and it reads, "If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader." And that quote is so vital in my day-to-day life. And so let's get started with some audience participation to make sure that you're all out there and awake. So,
all right, we have our first poll question, and I'm going to bring that up on your screen right now. And the first poll question is to select which statement you think best describes you. And it is, I am highly self-motivated and can easily inspire and motivate others. I am self-motivated but have a hard time inspiring others. And I struggle with being self-motivated, which affects the way that I lead others. So I'll give you a few moments to complete the poll. All right, we'll get those last couple poll questions in here, poll answers. Okay, looks like almost just about everybody answered. So let's share our results. So it looks like we have about 46% are highly self-motivated, which is amazing. And 54 are self-motivated but have a hard time inspiring and motivating others. And we have 0% that struggle being self-motivated. So I think that's a great start. I'll let Sandrea keep going with her presentation.
awesome. And I'm glad that that's how the results landed, which I assumed because I knew that we had a great group of leaders that were going to be joining us. And I, too, definitely relate to your results in those answers. So we're going to jump right in. And hopefully today's presentation will either, for those that are easily motivated and just want to learn how to motivate others, or whether you have a hard time motivating your chapter, hopefully you'll get something out of today's presentation. So we'll jump right in. For the sake of time, when you go and you think about all the tools that you can do or implement as a leader to inspire others, the number is endless, right? But I pulled forward, for the sake of time, 3 tools needed to be a motivating leader, and I kept it simple. In journalism, they have the KISS theory, the keep it simple, stupid theory. And so today's phone call, I just want to reiterate some of the simplest of things that motivate leaders that oftentimes as leaders we forget to do for ourselves and for the teams that we work with. And so you'll see in front of you the 3 points that we'll talk about today. Promote purpose and relatedness, tailor motivators, and create clarity. And so I loved, if you'll notice, I tried to put like verbs or action words tied to those topics to promote, to tailor, to create, so that there is a level of action already included in today's topics. So let's jump right in. First, we're going to talk about promoting purpose, and we're going to reinforce relatedness. What I want you to know first is that purpose is an intrinsic motivator. One of the simplest tools, I think, because naturally you want to be motivated. It's essential to be motivated, and so intrinsic in itself means belonging, natural, or essential, and so it is a natural or an essential motivator to understand purpose. So I challenge you as leaders to ask yourself, what's your purpose statement? When you think about building a purpose statement for yourself, and even when working with members or fellow leaders in your different environments, it's very key for them and for you to understand your purpose statement. A purpose statement defines your vision, where you want to go, your mission, what do you want to do, and the needed strategy, which is how to do it, is the purpose of creating an actual purpose statement. And it's not simple. It requires a lot of forethought and a lot of internal debate to get the best purpose statement for you. I do encourage leaders to have discussions with their organizational leaders. I'm a big fan of mentors. Mentors are very valuable. And so as you're thinking through what is your purpose statement, Don't hesitate to have those discussions with organizational leaders and mentors. For leaders, purpose statements are essential, and it is a process of thinking that helps you focus your mind and, in turn, your actions. So you'll see that I've included those 3 questions to develop the purpose statement, and we'll kind of quickly go through those questions. So where do you want to go? As a leader, you need to talk to yourself about where you want to take your organization. Do you want to be the king of the hill in size or in reputation? Do you want to excel in service? What do you want people to and toward that end, you must know how to conduct yourself to lead that organization, how much to influence others so that they buy into the vision as well, and more importantly, how can you get them to contribute so that they share in the development as well as the reward, the successes of those visions. And they're tough questions to be asked, and they should be asked and again. But where do you want to go? And then, like I said, what do you want to do? Mission is what you do day to day and year to year, and that's what your organization is founded on. You know, your mission statement. Each organization has one, and so leaders need to keep the organization aligned to the mission, so that you're keeping the purpose in the forefront of your mind. And I always like to say, keep it real. The realistic goal, purpose, and mission is always key. I truly think one of the best examples is the Phi Sigma Pi and the HOBY partnership. Leaders of both organizations saw that the partnership supported each other's missions. And then there's been a numerous amount of attempts and efforts to ensure that members of both organizations understand the history of the organization, the mission, and the purpose of the partnership. And so once you go into, where do you want to go personally, and what do you want to do, you always need to ask yourself, how do you do it? That's where you get a little bit more specific. So depending on if you're just a natural leader or if you're a leader that actually has a title tied to you, it's important that you develop the concepts and that you provide the direction to your audience, whether it's your members or even, these tools can be used even on your job, that you're understanding the direction and how to accomplish the goal. Let's see. We're also promoting purpose. And so when you're promoting purpose, it helps members find their motivation and the contribution to the mission. You'll see I put on there that, a high quality relationship with an effective leader who members respect is a key element in helping students, leaders, members develop that intrinsic motivation. And then, of course, relatedness is finding meaningful relationships with a group of people. It makes us feel like we belong. Make sure that you are genuine in your interest with members, and then don't give up. So many times when it comes to inspiring our leaders and motivating our leaders, we motivate them, we help them figure out, what it is, where do you want to go, what do you want to do? We help them understand the purpose, and we reiterate, but a lot of times we start out at the beginning with that excitement and that motivation, and promoting that purpose, and then we dwindle down naturally, whether, life changes or you get really busy. And so it's key to let that same motivation, those same skills follow throughout the entire journey. So just as enthusiastic as you were before to get them inspired and motivate them, that same energy and commitment needs to follow through to the very end. Sarah, can you help our audience understand some examples on how to implement their purpose and relatedness in their chapter settings?
Of
course. So as a national organization, really when we look at our purpose, Phi Sigma Pi's mission, our identity, it is truly our ritual. This is the foundation that we as members go through from the moment we're pinned as initiates to being inducted as brothers, and then seeing that induction follow suit each semester, each term, as we induct more members. So what I really recommend doing for your chapter, especially in the beginning of the term, is to hold a ritual review. This can be found in the back of your ritual and ceremonies books, and this is just a great way to have everyone in the chapter renew your sense of purpose to the ideals that you pledged to when you joined Phi Sigma Pi. It's a great way to set, the energy high, the passion high, and just remember, why we're here and why we're members of Phi Sigma Pi. So again, definitely really encourage you, if you haven't already planned a ritual review, or as you plan to, have your pinning ceremony and your induction ceremony later in the semester, I really, make sure you're keeping it sacred, you're keeping it a ceremony that you can be proud of. These members coming in, their sense of belonging really comes from that ritual. So definitely, as a national organization, as members, keep the ritual at the forefront and our mission and our purpose at the forefront of everything you do. And along with relatedness, again, it's important that, as members, that we are bonding. So making sure that you're creating meaningful relationships with, the fellow brothers of your chapter and potential new members as they come in to learn about Phi Sigma Pi. Building rapport and building trust is key to having a successful chapter.
Awesome. And so again, reinforcing your purpose and the relatedness and the rituals is a great way to do so. Thank you, Sarah. So let's see, next slide. So we've talked about the purpose and relatedness. Next, you've got to tailor motivators. And so let's see, I think I've got a quote coming up next. I'm big on quotes, guys, as you'll see. So the quote I chose for this portion is, "Be enthusiastic as a leader. You can't light a fire with a wet match." And so many times you'll see yourself trying to motivate others, and the person that's trying to motivate you doesn't even seem motivated themselves. And it looks like it's a great time for a poll question. So before we jump into this section, we're going to kind of gauge the audience as well.
Okay, yes. So we have our second poll question, and this one is, what motivates the members of your chapter? And if you could select up to 2 options, we have mission/purpose, relationships, time/money, responsibilities, and recognition. So I'll give everyone a few moments here to cast their votes. All right, looks like we're almost there. I'll give another few seconds to let those last couple people put their answers in. All right, it looks like we got just about everybody, so I will close this question and I will show our responses. Looks like we have 33% are motivated by mission and purpose, a great 67% by relationships, 17% time and money, 37% responsibilities, and 33% recognition. So I'll hand it back over to Sandrea and Sarah.
So I'm like you guys. I want to tell you guys a quick story. I do share in your responses. I'm glad they came out that way as well, because in my previous organization, I'll never forget the time our CEO stood in front of us and I oversaw recruitment. And he said, I have a charge that we are going to serve 10,000 youth. And I remember sitting in that audience as a leader, as a staff member, as an individual, and thinking, is he crazy? We only serve like 4,000 to 5,000 children now. and he wants us to get to 10, and it made me think, like, I literally said, is he crazy? However, I had a strong relationship, which a lot of you chose relationship as your motivator. I had a strong relationship with our CEO, and I had the responsibility. I had the title that led the charge of how are we going to serve these youth, because in that particular atmosphere, to serve the youth, we needed the mentors to mentor those youth, which means my team, the recruitment team at the time, was charged with finding the volunteers to help meet that goal. And so the responsibility and the relationship were my top two in that particular scenario. And it's very key. It's very key for you to understand what motivates you, and then also as a leader for you to understand what motivates your members. I think it's so key for you to share your appreciation for their accomplishments and contributions. And then as a leader, it also helps us feel good about our successes, and it helps, like I said, it helps increase their motivation. So when you're looking at what motivates you, what motivates your members, an important aspect of being a motivating leader is knowing what motivates each person. So just like we took that poll, and as you can see, it wasn't just two that ended in the results. It was a very diverse level of results that came out from that poll question. And so just like in this audience, take that same thought approach when you're working with members, when you're working within your chapter settings and out in the community. Think about what motivates those leaders, what motivates those people to actually act. And it varies between each person. Once you figure out what motivates you so that you can continue to motivate them in the ways that they need to be motivated, as leaders, it's very essential that you tailor your leadership style. In my position, I work with several different personalities, several different types of leadership, and they're all motivated in a variety of ways. And so when I'm working with them to encourage them as leaders, to help build them and tailor them to be motivated so they can in turn motivate their team, my leadership style changes. I have some leaders that really do need that every week contact with me. There are some leaders, they need all of the data, they need all of the resources. And then there are some leaders that are like, just give me the charge and check in with me periodically. And so that leadership style really does change between each person. And it's very key for you guys as leaders to help understand their leadership style so that you help get the best performance out of them. I always tell anybody that reports to me or that I work with, let me help you. I work for you. How can I help you be the best you can be? So you need to purposely, like I said, learn what motivates each of them. You're going to tailor that style, and that takes time, guys. That does take time. And then I love it. And I hear a lot of teams say, you better recognize. And so recognition is very key. It's a natural thing. Who doesn't like hearing great job or likes to publicly be recognized for something that they've done or accomplished? So make sure that you are recognizing those individuals. And under that sub-bullet, you'll see I remind you to choose your delivery method wisely. So depending on the recognition and what it's for and how it should be recognized, some recognitions, it's just a simple handwritten note that I may drop in the mail. Some I may publicly say in a regional meeting, a larger meeting. And then we even have, from our organizational standpoint, we do recognitions and awards and acknowledgement on our national level at an annual event that we hold. And so making sure that you're choosing your delivery method wisely. Be specific. As leaders, sometimes you expect the great job, but for a leader to say, Sarah, I really like how, and I'm using Sarah as an example. Sarah, I really like how you took the time to go above and beyond and send me the information needed to prepare for XYZ. So being specific so that they know it's just not a blanket recognition. you were recognized for something that you specifically did. And then involve others. Again, it's thinking about who, what, when, where, and why. And so when I say the bullet point of involving others, sometimes the recognition is at a level where it takes a national office to come in and say something, or in a workplace setting. It's one thing for your supervisor to always say great job, but it's another for the CEO to recognize it, and he now makes that special attempt to come and thank you for your contribution. So that's what I mean when I mean involve others, and think of ways in your settings on how you can recognize individuals or accomplishments and how to do so and who needs to be involved when you do that. Now, I will say when it comes to recognition, a lot of people want to just naturally include that, in their atmosphere. And while you can't force members or people to recognize each other, you can help create a positive culture of recognition. And it's very common and encouraged in a lot of atmospheres. So, for example, when you hold that chapter meeting, you may ask members to share examples of when they notice another member going above and beyond, or sometimes people will put up a whiteboard or a wall of recognition where members can acknowledge accomplishments, or there's a newsletter that goes out, something that allows the rest of the team to say, hey, good job, and recognize those people. But it is also very key for you to recognize, for you to realize like how often you recognize. But I will say, have you ever heard anybody complaining about being appreciated too much? So I just feel like as long as your recognition is specific and deserved, you don't have to put a limit on how often you shower it out to your leaders, to your team, to your chapter. Sarah, what other examples can we give our audience today on how they can implement motivating their leaders in their chapter setting?
So definitely, as we know, as members of an organization, there's going to be those who become disengaged in some way. So those that you might notice that they may have a hard time showing up for events, or just kind of do the bare minimum. I think it's really important to know, as Sandrea mentioned, really talked about, is know what motivates them in terms of getting them involved with Phi Sigma Pi. So if you're in a leadership position, or even just another member of the chapter, and you notice someone hasn't been as enthusiastic for Phi Sigma Pi, really take the time to sit down with them. Maybe it's during a coffee break or something, to find out what they're missing, or find out what will spark their fire, what will light their match. And they may have really great ideas and different things that they would love to personally kind of take charge of, or a personal connection to a service organization. Really taking the time to, and again, tailor your leadership style, get the most out of our members, because we all have so much to give. So really take the time to, ask for feedback that's constructive, complete event evaluations to see if the event was successful, or if this process has been successful. I know sometimes, if we get kind of into the routine of doing the same events every semester, it kind of comes to the point where they're not as fresh and as exciting. So trying some new events, new ideas, getting the word out, sharing your passion for it. So, fundraising may not always be the most exciting thing, but it's important, and making sure that you have the energy and saying the importance of this is why we need to fundraise, I think gets everyone a sense of ownership, and having, the sense of we need to do this for our chapter, and assigning roles to those. So if you know someone who, they're a great photographer, make sure that they're capturing the moments of that event, or they're really great at social media, have them do the social media outreach for that event or that project. Just figuring out ways that they can have ownership into our shared purpose and mission. And then, recognition. I know Sandrea mentioned that a lot of chapters do Brother of the Week, or they do chapter shout outs during meetings, or they celebrate members for, acts of kindness or accomplishments. So I think it's a great way, and it's so simple to, close a meeting out or open a meeting with times just to recognize one another and be supportive If you know a brother who is going to, has a music concert, go and attend that concert for them. And I know some chapters also do end of the year awards. So overall, it's exciting, and it's really about relationships. And, I definitely saw, as we saw with the poll results, relationships are highly motivating. So keeping those relationships strong and open, and making sure you're a trustworthy leader.
Awesome. And so the third point in inspiring or motivating our leaders is to create clarity. It's the simplest action, but so many leaders just are not very clear. And what I mean by that is help your members clearly understand the goals. The goals of the event, the goals of the chapter, the goals from a national level. What is the goal? And help them to really understand that. And so making sure you're constantly communicating, and you're constantly communicating the priorities, helping those members prioritize those tasks if those tasks if needed. And so a lot of times people are like, okay, you told me what I should do, and they're overwhelmed. They've got school, work life, all these things going on. And so helping them prioritize, like, this is what we really would like for you to get accomplished first. Sometimes it really does help leaders to have that list and for it to be prioritized. And don't forget to give feedback. Sarah just talked about that. Make sure you do give feedback and see what's going well, what's not. If they have a task that's on there and they're trying to accomplish the goal and the purpose, and they've run into a snag, sometimes just being able to talk about that, what's working well, what's not, and to have that that very genuine kind of brainstorming session on how do we get over this challenge, or capturing what's going well so that we can share it with others, is very key. And so making sure you're doing that, and you're, like I said, you're having the regular conversations. As I started out, a lot of times we start out one way and then we don't end. So as you're talking with them, you're tailoring your styles, you're inspiring them. Make sure that you're still checking back in with those members about the purpose and the goal to make sure that everybody's still trekking forward in common purpose. And so a lot of times that's in ongoing meetings or conversations. A lot of times I have set one-on-one chats with leaders because that's what they need. Their leadership style asks that. It allows them to continue to prioritize their task list. It allows the feedback, and they're very clear about the expectations giving to them. One thing I do want to note out is in those conversations, when you're having these conversations and you're creating this clarity of their purpose and goal, make sure that you're listening to learn. A lot of times people share their frustrations or their natural challenges, and as leaders, we're not listening to learn. And so make sure you're listening to and learn. Make sure you're inquiring for insight. The questions that you ask, that you're trying to be insightful into the accomplishment of whatever it is the conversation needs to obtain. And then make sure you're telling your truth. A lot of times with my team, and we're trying to track towards a common purpose or goal, I'm very honest with them, like, hey guys, I'm having challenges with this. And I do open it up for dialogue to even help myself as a leader. So keep those in mind when you're having those conversations as leaders. And then I want to ask you guys just that rhetorical question. When I think about myself as a leader, how do I feel when I know nothing? I show up to an event and no one's giving me any details or a play-by-play of what's going on, and you're in the midst of it, and it's a chaotic feel in your mind. You're like, what is going on? Think about that mindset versus how do you feel when you know the plan and you know the details and how we're going to accomplish the goal. And so keep that mindset in mind when you're talking to your fellow leaders and helping them to know the plan and understand the details. And that definitely comes in the clarity portion of today's presentation. Sarah, let's see, what other examples can we give them when they're creating clarity?
I think definitely one way that, I know chapters have brought up and things that they can struggle with is transparency between, the executive board, the executive council, and the general membership. I know a lot of chapters have brought up that sometimes it feels like, they're two separate entities in terms of, the e-board's doing this and we're, just knowing about this information. So I think it's important that, as Sandrea mentioned, understanding the chapter's goals and purpose and constantly communicating priorities. I think it's really important in that having, open meetings that members can attend for e-board and e-council, and just having the space to communicate between the leaders of the chapter and the general membership. So make sure you're having those conversations and those outlets for those to give and receive feedback. And there's great leadership and action modules on pretty much everything we've discussed so far, but specifically, on strategic planning. There's LA modules on prioritizing that the chapter can do as a whole, working through tough situations, giving and receiving feedback, strategies into action. So these are great opportunities for the chapter to, as a whole, do a leadership and action module that creates clarity for everybody. So these are great ways to have these conversations and to set them up that everyone is on the same page and everyone is motivated and has ownership. So I think, if you haven't already requested some LA modules, go and take a look at that list today and think of what will be most beneficial for your chapter.
I love the word you used, Sarah, transparency. Transparency is so key in leadership. And a lot of times I'm like, if I don't have the answer, if I don't have a solution, I'm very honest and I'm transparent with my team about that. And so, yes, great point. So we're about halfway through, and for this side of the conversation, we're talking about motivating leaders. Our next slide kind of brings that to you in a visual. I'm a visual person, guys, and so I like to keep it simple, and I like graphics. And so the 3 points that we talked about today, and like I said, there are a number of tools to motivate leaders, but the 3 categories of today, we talked about purpose and relatedness, helping members to find motivation in their contributions to the mission, and helping members feel like they belong. The sense of belongingness is just so key in human nature. And then when you're tailoring those motivators, so of course we want you to tailor yourself. Figure out what motivates you, as I said earlier in the call. And in that, in turn, know what motivates each person that you work with. What motivates your chapter? And then tailor your leadership style to help get the best performance from each person. And then last but not least, that transparency part, that create clarity, understanding the chapter goals and priorities, and constantly communicating and helping prioritize those goals and priorities is also very key. So I wanted to add that slide in there if you didn't get anything else out of it, no, the purpose, motivating them, and creating that clarity, those are 3 things that I think will definitely help you guys kick off to begin to build and inspire and motivate those leaders. So after you've motivated yourself and you've motivated your team, we all know that service is definitely a part of everything that we do. And so we want action. We want them to get involved in service. Of course, I may be biased in what service they get involved in, but as you heard in the intro, I've been in nonprofit for over a decade, and I personally lead a life of service in everything that I do outside of my my career. So it's time for another quote again. I was gonna say, I think we do our poll question first. Let's do our poll question first to make sure you guys are still alive out there.
We have our final poll question. It is, how have you been actively involved with service? So you can select 2.
I was going to say, Casey, we're hearing some feedback on our end.
Okay, so as we work through that, so again, you can select up to 2 of just how have your chapter been involved with HOBY in general. So we are going to work through, take a couple moments to select up to 2, and then Casey will be pulling up the answers. Okay, so our top one was fundraising and donations with 52%, volunteers at 34%, HOBY hugs, and then others. So Sandrea and I will kind of be going through service in general, but also getting involved with HOBY. So I'll kick it back to Sandrea.
Awesome, awesome. Sarah, I'm excited about these results. I don't know about you. With fundraising and donations being our front runner, that means that we've definitely got an active and engaged audience. So thank you guys for your service. So let's jump right into the second half of our call. You guys know I'm a quote person, and so for this portion of the call, I chose the quote by Albert Schweitzer, which is, "The purpose of human life is to serve and to show compassion and the will to help others." I really love this quote because it ties into the HOBY mission. It ties into my personal outlook on service, and it's actually why I got into nonprofit. The reward to be able to show compassion and will to help others in service, for me, it was just my it moment in life. And so, not to delve too much, but if you haven't heard the story on how our organization, HOBY, Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership, was formed, Albert Schweitzer played a direct impact in that. Our founder, Hugh O'Brien, he went on this missionary journey, and I think he was there for like 9 days, almost 2 weeks. And he was there, you know, with Dr. Schweitzer, who was a German doctor and missionary, amongst many things. He was a theologian. He's just a jack of all trades. He spent that time with him, watching him and fellow doctors work over in Africa, I believe. And so they were there, and at the end of the journey, the doctor, you know, was impressed that, you know, he had taken the time and the trouble to come visit him, and he had shared stories with Hugh and all this and that. But what I love is that he asked him at the end, "What are you going to do with this?" After he had been over there and studied and watched and observed and heard the stories and saw their compassion through their service over there in that country, he asked him, you know, "What are you going to do with this?" And guys, honestly, 2 weeks later, that's how our organization got started, and we've been going ever since. So as we delve into this portion of the conversation, we want to talk about service. And so I'll kind of start our broad level about HOBY, which our mission, which we have up on the screen, is to, oh, sorry guys, I had a glitch on my screen. Our mission is to inspire and develop our global community of youth and volunteers to a life dedicated to leadership, service, and innovation. And so that's our mission. And what I love is that through our partnership, and it looks like you guys are already really engaged through our poll question, the next slide shows you, it really, in my opinion, gives you the visual of why that partnership is, in my opinion, one of the best examples of partnership, and why it's a win-win for both organizations. And so you'll see in front of you how we've outlined the benefits for students and for volunteers on both sides. As a HOBY alum, these are youth who have been identified as leaders and can be outstanding future members of Phi Sigma Pi. I love it. Those students, they're college bound, and like I said, they've already got the leadership skills in them, and they have special access to certain college campuses with Phi Sigma Pi because through that partnership, we're exposing them to the college campus, and through your partnership, a lot of the PSP members show up and they're engaged, and marketing and promoting the organization. On the PSP side, it provides HOBY alum with a place to belong when they arrive in college, and your organization allows us to use your leadership skills as well, because you are a service leadership organization as well. And so I won't go through all of those, but you'll see on there. And then on the volunteer side, it does provide volunteer opportunities when you guys are engaged. And as you saw through the poll, you guys have provided gifts in kind, your actual hands-on service by being there, sponsorships. Sarah was at our national training that we held. And so there's a lot of opportunities. We are educating. We're getting you guys involved and connected. I know Samantha from Nevada, we worked hand in hand, and she served as a facilitator. And it was awesome to see the partnership in action and seeing her volunteering and inspiring leadership into the youth. And then for us, it was great to have that leadership individual as a facilitator to help reinforce our mission as well. And I don't know about you guys, but that's like one of my favorite photos ever. And I had to ask Sarah, I was like, is this Photoshop? Like, is this real? These are real members of both organizations, one of my favorite photos. So moving right along, I want to be conscious of our time. Sarah, I'm gonna turn it over to you to kind of give examples and ways to specifically get involved, and then talk about getting involved in general.
So as we mentioned right at the beginning, purpose and relatedness is very important to motivating. So nationally, Phi Sigma Pi and our chapters and members, we have a shared purpose and focus to support HOBY, which is now our official national philanthropy. So I think it's important that as an organization, as a brotherhood, that we have a shared cause, a shared focus to support. And in this case, as Sandrea mentioned, it is very much a partnership. So one of the things I really like to highlight is there's many different ways to get involved with HOBY. So as we talked about earlier, tailor your motivators. So there might be different ways or different opportunities that fit members and chapters differently. So knowing if you're someone who really likes to be hands-on, involved, engaged, and really see this program in action, which I highly suggest to everyone, is to be a volunteer. So the top right-hand corner, we have members from a variety of chapters that volunteered for a leadership seminar for a weekend. So that's a really great hands-on opportunity. If you're really into planning and organizing, you can do like the Beta Pi chapter did, and they hosted a clue for local freshmen. The Beta Phi chapter hosted a 5K run walk to support HOBY. So that was something that they were able to do right in their community for their campus. And, the whole chapter got to have ownership of that event. And then you can always make, HOBY hugs and have a great way just to sit and talk about HOBY, invite, speakers in from the local HOBY site to provide firsthand testimonials and accounts and make those personal relationships. So really there's an opportunity for everybody in some way to get involved with HOBY, whether that be through donations, through a planning committee for a site. If you are a great graphic designer, I'm sure a HOBY site would love to have you help design their materials. Or if you really would love to be involved with logistics or fundraising, those are opportunities that exist. So whatever your motivator, whatever drives you and whatever you're passionate about, there's an opportunity for that. And then a lot of other chapters, of course, we have HOBY, but in general, just service and leadership is one of our tripods. And the idea of having a balanced tripod is serving our local communities and philanthropies. So there are chapters that have official local philanthropies as well, which is very personal to them. So that's what I encourage you to do, is to look at your community, your campus community, your local community, and see what local causes and organizations are out there that you can partner with. What are the members of your chapter passionate about? Whether that be having a survey or an open discussion to see if anyone has a personal connection, or if they want, something's really been tailored to them, that I think they can have the energy and the enthusiasm for it. So, definitely look for ways that you can get involved and then create partnerships on your own. So as we have this national partnership with HOBY, look and see what your local chapter is passionate about and figure out ways that you can not only serve them, but ways that you can get involved socially, interacting with their membership or the people that they serve. Invite them in for scholarship opportunities to learn about, their cause, the issue that they are passionate about as well. So in kind of our next steps, so what we would like for you to do. So as Sandrea mentioned earlier, we had 3 action verbs for you. This is what we'd like you to do. So the first thing, to get in connected with HOBY, you can email Sunshine Navarro-Shively. She is our HOBY partnership lead at shively@hoby.org. And she can help get you connected to HOBY. She'll connect you with maybe even Sandrea to help get connected with the local sites, the local volunteers. And then from there, we encourage you to partner for HOBY and really take this opportunity to invite them to your chapter, have a meeting, a phone call, figure out mutual ways that you can support HOBY in your area and the HOBY can get involved with your chapter. And then from there, volunteer. So I encourage you, when you make these connections, to find out when they're hosting their leadership seminar and put it on your calendar. It's a great opportunity to see, all the good that HOBY does with empowering students to be leaders in their communities. And this same step goes for other organizations. So, contact your local animal shelter if that's what your chapter is really passionate about. Get connected to them and partner and volunteer with them. So really encourage you to make September your action month and get connected to the causes that you want to support. Don't forget to share your HOBY happenings with HOBY@FiStingWithPie.org. We'd love to see ways that you're partnering with HOBY, pictures, stories, events, anything. We'd love to see and share that out. And you can use the hashtag PSP and HOBY on social media to share your pictures, and you may even see them reposted. So definitely share those out. And last thing is, I'd like you to mark November 15th on your calendar. That is National Philanthropy Day. And we would love for you in the month of November to host an event with HOBY. And we'll be talking about that in later lunch and learns and blog posts. But I encourage you to get connected in September and build that partnership with either HOBY or your local cause, and in November do an event that supports HOBY, or better yet, do an event with HOBY. So with that, I will open it up for any questions if anyone has for Sandrea. So if you would like to type your questions in the chat box, Casey will then read out our questions for us and we'll try to answer them for you.
All right, I hope my feedback issue has been corrected. All right, I'm getting a head nod from Sarah that I'm sounding good. So sorry about that earlier, guys. So if you have any questions, please send them in your chat box and I will get an answer for you.
They're already all thinking of ways that they can go out and act and implement.
Even if you guys, not necessarily a question, maybe just something that you want to discuss. If you have any ideas already, if you want to just share them with us and we can talk about them for a little bit. All right, we have one that is, what is the best way to deal with someone who is negatively motivating others?
Is this one for me or you want me to answer, Sarah, or you want to then?
Yes, Sandrea, if you want to answer, that would be great.
Okay. So the best way to deal with someone who is negatively motivating others, I actually had this happen at an actual event. And so to be honest, you got to go back to that transparency, the transparency part that we talked about, and think about the method in which you choose to discuss, but it's just like a discussion that needs to be had. And so I'll just give you my real life example. I had an individual who was just being a very a negative Nancy, if you will. And so I pulled that individual to the side at the appropriate time, and I said, hey, you know, I've noticed that you're not having a good day, or it seems like you have some frustrations or some concerns. And I want to see if if you want to share what those are, depending on the atmosphere. If it's something like it's if it's at an actual event and they're, you know, in the midst of being negative, I try to help that individual remind, like, hey, you know, let's definitely make sure we talk about this after the event. Right now, what can I do to help you to make sure that we are making sure that our audience is having the best experience possible? A lot of times when people are negative, it's because there's either something that happened before they got there, or something that's going on in their life that's impacting their attitude, or something has happened. But it's usually, when you're negative, it's usually a reaction to an action. And so finding out what that action is, think about who needs to be the one to approach that individual. But I like to tell people, going to that person and just kind of addressing it, maybe something that you tiptoed around, but it's actually very respected, especially when it's coming from a place of genuineness. You're like, hey, you know, this is not you. I'm not used to this. If there's something going on, if it's something that they don't want to share about, then I always encourage, hey, I'm here to talk. If you need to, we can talk about it later, but I genuinely am concerned and want to be a positive reinforcement in your life. And so I just think transparency is key for that situation. And as leaders, just know we always have to have those conversations that nobody wants to have. So it just kind of comes with leadership. And if you don't feel comfortable with being the one to do that in the most respectful way, figure out in your chapter who can be the one to address that. And in those conversations, like I said earlier, make sure that you're listening to learn, and that your questions are there to inspire and to inquire about what's going on. Sarah, you have anything that you would add to that?
No, I don't think so. I think you really covered it perfectly. And I know we have one more question for you, Sandrea, then too.
Yes, it is from Skylar. She asks, how do we keep people motivated when there is a lot of things to get done?
Oh, man. So that's a great question. So in my position, I'm a national director, and so I've got 12 states that come with their own leadership team and their own team that's up under them. And it can be challenging when you have a lot to do on your plate. And so what I do is I create the opportunity. And what I mean by that is I have so much going on that I make sure that I've already penciled in when I'm going to motivate, if that makes sense. So if I know that every time I have a meeting, I know that I'm going to start out with positivity. I'm going to start out with acknowledgement. It's already built into that setting, so that if I haven't touched points with my team, I've created that structured window to be able to do so. Or on my calendar, I look at times of the year when I know it's going to be low, the volume of work is not so heavy, and I take the time to block off an hour or two if I'm watching my favorite TV show. I'll go to the dollar store and get cards, and I may choose like 5 people, or, so like, hey, I just want to write a handwritten note to. Or if you're in a chapter meeting, the last staff retreat we did, they went to Target, Dollar Tree, got a lot of thank yous, and they just spread them throughout the table, and they encouraged staff members to write a positive note to another staff member that may have happened in the past that you never said thank you or you acknowledged them for, or something that they may have shared or contributed in that meeting that you thought was helpful. And I honestly thought no one was going to do it, and I flew home with 5 cards from colleagues that I read on the plane home, and it was just so motivating because as the newest member of the team, it was just something that I needed. So I would just be intentional about structuring it in, because we all get very busy, and think about what works best for you, whether it's treating it as a meeting, and once a month you block off an hour, and that meeting is, I'm going to now take the time to stop and figure out how can I reward or thank my team. And to be honest, guys, when you're in a social media atmosphere or in a world that's so technology driven, the simplest act of writing a thank you note really does go a very, very, very long way. Hopefully that helps you, Skylar. I'm very creative, and I'm downplaying my enthusiasm on this call. But you feel free to reach out to me, and I'll give you some very creative ways to inspire and motivate and help you build that natural schedule that you may need to make sure that you don't forget. But a lot of times, I'm just building it into standing atmospheres and situations that I know already exist, so that I'm keeping it in the forethought of my mind.
Great. And also, Sandrea, as you said, she can reach out to you. I do have somebody else I'm going to have them reach out to you. They want to get involved on the West Coast, and I know you are our West Coast contact, so I'm going to have them email you about how to get more involved with HOBY being on the West Coast.
Yes, if I can make a plug too, if you are on the West Coast, I serve from as topmost as Alaska all the way down to Hawaii. So all of the big states on the west side of the U.S. Fall under Region H. And I know throughout the year the other national directors will be joining you guys and sharing insight. And so whether you're in my region or not, I love interaction and I love meeting new people. So don't hesitate to reach out if you need that dose of motivation. That's kind of who I am in my world, even in HOBY. They're like, I need some energy, Sandrea, and they call me. And I'll be honest. I won't hold long, but my secret is coffee. Don't tell people. I drink a lot of coffee that keeps me motivated for that 5-year-old that I have, and then I work with youth. So you got to stay excited and engaged. There's so much competition for their thought and their time with technology and everything that goes on out there. So I try to remain positive and try to be consistent with it.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Sandrea and Sarah, for joining me today and discussing how to become a motivating leader and getting chapters more involved with service. And for anyone who joined us today, or if you have members that you think that this will benefit who could not join us, you'll be able to watch this and share it on our YouTube page, and that is at youtube.com/Phi Sigma Pi. And we'll encourage you to fill out a survey to give us some feedback about today's Lunch and Learn, and a link to that will be sent to you in a follow-up email. Our next Lunch and Learn webinar will be on Friday, October 13th, same time, same place, noon Eastern, and this will be talking about creatively planning an event with another organization. So you can register for that at phisigmapi.org/lunchandlearn. And our next thing we're going to be having is our Tweet Meet, and that will be Sunday, October 1st at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And the topic for that is successful event planning. And you can register at phisigmapi.org/tweetmeet. So I want to thank you guys all again for participating, and congratulations for earning 8 more Leadership in Action points. Remember, your goal is 75 points to earn your Leadership in Action certification. And you can gain those by joining another Lunch and Learn or Tweet Meets. And also, you can gain 6 more points next Tuesday at our virtual facilitator training. If you are not already one, it is at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And I want to encourage you to hurry up and register because spots are filling up fast. So register today at phisigmapi.org/VFT. So that does it today for our Leadership in Action Lunch and Learn webinar. Lead on, everyone. Chat with you later.